In a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of this is in the back of each agenda posted in this meeting room and on the website. The town clerk and tax collector's office will be closed on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022, to attend the Lakes Region Town Clerk Spring Workshop. Municipal Clerks Week Proclamation. It's the 53rd Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week Proclamation. Whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and the agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrally and impartially rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk service as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk throughout participation, education programs, seminars, workshops, annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Paul LaRochelle, Vice Chairman of the Selectmen of Alton, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Jennifer Collins, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital service they perform and their extraordinary dedication to the communities they represent. Thank you. This time we'll open up to public input, limited to 3 minutes on an agenda only. Seeing no one, we'll close to public input. Appointments? No appointments. We'll move right to new business. Building permit, Lee Drive, map 39, lot 45.
We accept the planning board's recommendation for a building permit. Lee Drive, which is a private road, map 39, lot 45, John and Jennifer Fisher.
We have a second.
Second for discussion.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
The town administrator had something.
I was just going to mention that I wasn't sure that the owners were actually going with it. We weren't sure whether they were going to arrive to be here. If not, I try to answer any questions that the board has, but the planning board put a memo forth. So I don't see the owners. So
No.
I don't think anybody's going
Mr. Chairman.
So the only question I had, Mr. Chairman, was this is already a private road that's been in existence for many years. It was made to town road standards. It's actually one of the better private roads in the town. I just find it a hardship that these folks would have to come and go through all this through the planning board because it's already been approved lot, if I'm not mistaken.
If I'm not mistaken, the town sold the lot at auction. I believe this is one that had a foundation on it once already and a
yes.
driveway.
It is.
So I
foundation's
guess,
still there.
I guess what I'm saying is, I can see if it was on a class 6 road, having to go through all these steps, but it was already a lot of record. It's already been on an approved private road by the town from a subdivision. To go through all these steps, and then look at the slope, what the Public Works Director put in there to the state road. If they hadn't gone and got a building permit, nothing would ever been done on that private road to the slope anyway. So I just feel something like this shouldn't even have to come before the board or back to the planning board. I think it's an unnecessary step. If it was a class 6 road, I can see no problem. But as far as already a lot of record, I really don't. To me, if I was the homeowner, I'd be a little upset I'd had to gone through all this.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
class 6 road is what you call a private road. And they have to sign off, which they've done here with emergency access. The town's not responsible necessarily, with the road conditions. Town's not responsible to take care of the road.
Right.
There's conditions to class 6 roads when you go to build on them. And whether it should come before the Board of Selectmen, can't answer that. But they have come,
They
I
have
read
come.
through it, and
I have to. And
Oh, I have no problem. with
they've
it.
gone through all the steps.
I have no problem. The only problem I have with it, there's been several houses that's been built up there that's never become before the Board of Selectmen or the planning board.
I
They had already
understand.
gone through the planning process. And a class 6 road, town class 6 road, I can understand it. Other than that, I can't understand it. I just think it's a waste of good, valuable resources. That's all.
I can certainly bring it up to the code officer and the planner and speak about, because I thought there was a process in which, I think it's evolved a little bit, but it used to be that if you were gonna build on a private road, there was an acknowledgement form that had all the waivers that Selectman Holt was speaking of.
Yes.
And basically you signed that and had it notarized and presented with your building permit. I know that has been done in the past because I've had experience with that in the past. I don't know exactly how that changed or why it morphed into this process, but I can certainly inquire further on that.
Any other discussion?
I second that.
It was second already.
Oh.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Thank you. New business, Foster's Tavern Beverage Wine Liquor License Approval.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
second,
All in favor? Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to old business. Planning and zoning consultant contract approval.
Chairman, I move we approve the planning and zoning consultant contract as presented.
Do we have a second discussion?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Other old business, Public Works Department, 2022 Fleet Bid Award.
Mr. Chairman, as the Public Works Director wasn't available to attend tonight, he had asked me if we could put this on for the board to review it and I could speak to the board. The reason why is these issues are becoming time sensitive now because they're not, or I should say dealers are not holding to their bids very long. So he wanted to get it in front of the board as fast as possible instead of delaying till the next meeting. But certainly if the board has more conversation they need to speak to him directly about, we can table this later. But basically, they did the bid openings for the bid specs for the trucks. For highway, we only received one bid. We were only able to get one bid from Grapponi Automotive Group in Concord. They bid on 19.5 GVW and the 11,000 GVW vehicles. Both have 100,000 5-year warranties. The problem is, as you can see with the delivery date right now, they're projecting a 400-day delivery date.
That's unbelievable.
So that's really the nature of what and I think everybody here knows that. It's just unfortunate. It's unheard of, but it's the nature of what we're living in right now, is that we're ordering stuff now for the next year, if not the following calendar year. So this vehicle won't get here till probably the end of summer or fall of 2023 if we order it now. So that was sort of the that and them being able to hold to the bid. They've agreed to hold to their numbers through the delivery date, and they have also agreed to take in the trade-in of the 2010 Ford F-550 dump. The only thing, obviously, at this point, with 400 days left, they're going to be allowed to utilize that vehicle. So they're not really going to be able to negotiate a solid trade-in price until they get to that, closer to that delivery date where they can actually see what the mileage is and where the vehicle's at that point. So.
My only concern, Mr. Chairman, I went through everything, but action requested on the second page. It's the trade-in issue. I'd like to have in that, be in the motion, if we do it tonight, it be that the Public Works Director to negotiate a trade. I'm reading this now. The 210 F-550 and the other truck, the 550 dump with a said trade amount to be deducted from the purchase price. But I think that should be after the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Certainly, we can make sure that that's in there as well. Because I think at that point, there would be plenty of time to bring that trade-in amount back to the board. I don't think that.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Because we may even,
may opt to sell it outright at that point, depending on the market.
that much or whatever.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just go back and reference to this, the F-550 dump, I take it was the highway dump truck.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And the pickup truck is
The water.
water department. So shouldn't this be a purchase from the water department, not from the Public Works Department? Or from the budget of the water department, not from the highway department or capital reserve? I mean, it doesn't really list in here that I could read where the monies were coming from.
What amount?
And after reviewing from some public input, going back and looking at the vehicles and everything else and looking into them, just trying to find the specific departments these are coming out of, that's all.
Okay,
That's what I would like to know.
Yeah.
And at this point, if we're 400 days out,
definitely understandable.
I don't see why we can't postpone it, but because I've found all sorts of 5500s, Dodges, Fords on the internet. They're not from here. One's in, I know there's several in Michigan I've been looking at, several in Kentucky and several in Nashville. Now, whether or not it meets their specs, but I know the 5500 and the 550s do, because they're 19,500 GVWs with a gross combined towing weight of 32,000 pounds, because that's what I need to look at for my hay. And they're out there for around 52,000. Sure, they don't come with a plow. They're not coming with a sander. But there are trucks out there. That's why I'm really surprised that these different internet sites that I visit, which there's two of them, that they are not going out there and looking, because they can still get the same warranty and be transferred right to a Dodge or a Ford dealership out here. Because my last truck came out of Michigan, and Irwin's takes care of all the warranty work all the time for them. Like I said, it wouldn't have the plow or anything like that with it attached, but maybe that's something they could look at. They won't have to wait 400 days and possibly save some money.
Absolutely. No, it's a very good point. I will just, point out, because I'd like the hear your feedback on it is I think part of it, I think they feel they're pinned in with the RFP, the bid process. You know, that these, when we go out and search online, we're basically soliciting ourselves at that point.
Right.
As long as the board is okay with that, I think that they would, most of the departments would be more than willing to do that legwork. They just didn't want to get, you know, caught up trying to do the legwork, soliciting that way and not having the board support it as far as not going out for bid or bid spec at that point.
Fire
Because we're-
department has done that before as well. As you know, gone
Yeah.
out.
I mean, I have no problem, especially in the times that we're in right now,
Mhm.
especially for a drastic need. This 400 days out, we're over a year out on this.
Right.
So, you know, that in the specific departments, and I understand that we've asked for the RFPs and everything else, but maybe they could look into it and go that way and come back and say, we feel the town can do better if we go this way. But some, it'll take two people to go out to get the truck and come back. But they'll also meet, a lot of these places will meet you at the airport and bring you there and get the paperwork done. And they're all certified dealerships, Ford, Dodge, good ratings and everything else. Actually, I found it for myself personally and for my business, I found it much easier doing business with them out there than I do local dealerships here. That was one of the most amazing things. The hardest part was driving out to get the truck and coming back with it.
Sure. I know a lot of police departments are doing that, or are buying fleet vehicle, large numbers, like 10, 15 vehicles. They're more easier to come by out in the Midwest, and they're actually hauling them out there for them.
Actually, there's pros and cons, you know, doing it this way. One of the cons is they don't keep this stuff very long now. In other words, those trucks, you get on the computer, you'll find one. And in the way we operate, going before the board, you know, for
Takes time.
permission and everything, takes time. So a lot of times you're spinning your wheels in the sand. And I got no problems with trying it because, you know, if it works for the town, well, if it works for us, it's good. But it can get to be, how do you word it, hard to do for the town.
What's the mileage on the current dump and
I honestly, if it's not in his memo, I don't have
I
the
didn't see
specific
it.
information, so.
maybe someone else, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it.
They did give it to us originally. I could not find my old paperwork to go through and look at it. Otherwise I wouldn't have had all these questions tonight.
Yeah,
So,
you had that before, if I remember
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, all right. I was just curious of what the mileage was on both.
Yeah, years.
The year and the mileage on both.
So I thought one of these trucks was to replace the forestry truck. That was talked about at
Yes.
budget time. And all I wanted to say was that when we took over the forestry truck from the fire department, the only reason we didn't get rid of it because it was still of use. And we used it for, I think it's maybe been 3 years, 4 years at the highway department. But is my understanding back then, it was never intended to be replaced again. It was a vehicle we were going to use until there was no more use for it.
Right.
So that's why I was asking if this dump truck was replacing it, do we really need it? Do we have a driver for all these trucks? Or are some of these trucks just going to sit there sometimes? That's my other thing, because we added, I remember 2 trucks to the highway department that year. One was the old cemetery truck, I thought, and one was the forestry truck from the fire department. And that was the red Ford, which had a flatbed on it. Department used. And we approved it, but I've never understood it to be replaced down the road once we were done using it. It was just an added extra vehicle that had use, still used to the town, which we took advantage of. So that's why I was wondering.
Absolutely. So with these questions and everything like that, obviously I can't answer a lot of these questions, which is fine. And that was the plan that we had, that if there were questions that were specific to Public Works, so he would be here at the next meeting to be able to answer those questions. But in the interim, if you'd like me to, I'll reach out to him and make sure, have him do a little bit of research online, see if we can do something better, maybe coming back and make some decisions at the next meeting on the 16th.
Is that the general consensus of
I
the rest
make
of
a
the board?
motion, we table it. Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Table.
Okay.
Selectmen reports.
Also,
Bob. Andrew.
None.
Conservation Commission meeting, had a meeting last week, went over several intent to cuts, also some other things that came down from the building department on permits and things like that. The other thing that was brought up, there was a walk at the Coffin Brick Gravel Pit. Planning Board and Conservation Commission went out. Conservation was asked by the Planning Board, what would it be to satisfy the Planning Board to allow permit to be granted? Planning Board, Conservation Commission is sending a letter back to the Planning Board. I believe they're going to have just an attorney draft it for them. So it covers all the loopholes. One was that the area indiscretion, the berm that was taken out, be put back to the 50-foot buffer, like for commercial use. That it will be well maintained, it'll be seeded and loam, and there'll be assurances that it will never be invaded again. And that's according to their plans that were submitted to the Planning Board in January 2022 of this year. That laid out everything they were going to do. It has not all been done yet. And Conservation, as soon as that was all done and completed, they would sign off. So then the Planning Board could go issue the permit, that which would come down to the Board of Selectmen to sign. So that's all I have.
Thank you. All I have is the Master Plan Committee met on Wednesday, April 20th. And during that meeting, there was a further discussion on Chapter 4 land use, and further discussion beginning of Chapter 5 infrastructure. The next meeting will be May 4th at 6 o'clock. If there's anyone interested for the public. And also Alternative Housing Committee met April 21st, 2022, and opened with a discussion on short-term rentals. It was a rather lengthy discussion, and we'll continue further and speak with Tara Bamford as well, and getting some information from other surrounding towns and towns in the state of New Hampshire of how they're handling short-term rentals. And also talking about, as far as new business on that, green space areas, subdivisions, open space ordinances, and affordable housing will all be in the future discussion. And the next meeting will be Monday, May 23rd at 6 p.m. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just put one more thing in there.
Yes.
If we find some way, or maybe if the board so chooses, to notify the fishing game or the commissioners of fishing game, that maybe they might want to put an ad out in the paper about the park down the Downing Landing, saying no cars unless they have boat trailers attached to them, or canoe racks, I guess, on the cars are not allowed to be parked there, or they will be subject to a fine. I believe on yesterday it was.
Yes,
Yesterday or Sunday.
Sunday.
Fishing game showed up, blocked access, and started writing tickets to people that were parked there illegally, that were either visiting across the street at a restaurant. There are signs down there now that say no parking, small signs, but they might want to put something in the paper just to maybe alleviate some disgruntled people, because these cars are parked at night, assuming that nobody be launching a boat at 7 o'clock at night. So the parking spots are open. They parked there. They went about a walk, or they went to the restaurant. They came back finding they were being written up. And as a small community, which we rely on tourists, and businesses do too, we like to have the nice, quaint community we have. I just find it a little insulting that we just all of a sudden show up and do something like that.
Would it make sense to contact and talk to the state department and talk to them about a possibility of putting a sign up that would say after a certain time?
It would be
after 8 p.m. in the evening, that'd be acceptable, to see if they would agree to possibly have parking until 3 a.m. or something like that, or till midnight, from 8 to midnight only.
I would have no problem with that.
If that would make sense to do that, and try to talk with the state and see if there could be some sort of parking for at least a few hours of every evening when it's not in use.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that, but I just found, I had a couple of people talk to me about it at the store today. how upset, things got. And I guess a couple of them got a little heated down there, but they finally went along the way when it came to law enforcement. And I'm sure the police chief might have heard something about it too.
Yes, he may have. I didn't have a chance to talk to him today about that, but by all means, I mean, if it's the consensus of the board, I can write a letter, or I can reach out to him directly and discuss the issue with him. I do know that they're probably going to be a little contentious about the idea of, because one of the big issues is that the restaurant assuming to use the parking lot as overflow parking for dockside. I mean, that's just been an ongoing, that was an ongoing issue when Downing still owned it, everything else. It always has.
I know it was, but it was also privately owned at that time.
But it's also the restaurant owners themselves have said, you can't park over there. They've told their patrons, you
They've
really
actually
can't
told
park over
them
there.
not to
And
park there.
they've tried not to, but it's the general public coming in, open parking spots, no
Absolutely.
boats or trailers there, let's park there. Myself, I park there at night when I know there's no boats or cars being empty, but I also look at it as public lands. It's owned by the state, and it's owned by the government, Fish and Game, but there's still public funds. There was grant money that was given to them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to find maybe a way that it could work for all people.
Sure.
That's all.
What does the signage say now? I really haven't.
It says no car or truck parking. It just says no parking in these spaces, and you see all the spaces that are there for trailer parking, but there's like dedicated possibly 7 to 8 shorter spaces for car top, which that means they have racks on the
Racks,
roof
yeah.
for canoes, kayaks.
Now, what if a gentleman or a person wants to go fishing? And fish off.
That's
that
an issue.
dock down there or off the edges of the,
They're not supposed
without a
to,
canoe.
they're not
or-
supposed to park in there
They
if
can't
they're just
park
gonna
in there.
fish.
Geez, I got a little
And that's why I think it's worth talking to them.
issue with that, like.
Mhm.
Oh, that is our money to build this thing. Why?
Exactly. Not to mention that the town has put up with a lot of grief from taxpaying people in the town and about parking and parking issues in that area, or being closed and being open, and when it wasn't that. We've had to deal with a lot of that, and the state just basically didn't do much with it.
Okay,
So we took a lot of heat for it.
I don't know how they can control it, but.
The general consensus then to see if we could have the administrator send them a letter and at least draft up something to at least talk to them about it.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So if, just to clarify what my thought was, if the board is okay with it, is I'll reach out to Garrett directly. Telephone, talk to him about the concerns and see if I can get a feel for maybe a compromise or something that we can write up, and then I can write it up. Is the board okay with me writing something up along our discussion here and sending that, or do you want me to do a draft and bring it back to you first beforehand?
As far as the administration aspect, I would like to see you reach out, see what you can do.
Okay.
You hit a stumbling block at that point, maybe then the selectmen need to send a letter to the governor and governor's council and House of Representatives and let them know how we feel.
Go a little
Because
further.
I know the Fish and Game are kind of their own department,
Mhm.
but they're still come underneath the hospital of the state government.
Yeah.
That's right.
My thing is when we do the fireworks, the barge is going to be allowed to use that launch there instead of using the public launch that we have, because it's much steeper and it's a lot easier for their barges to go into the Downing Landing than it would be down our boat ramp.
Mhm. I could definitely talk to him about that. I can't see how they could stop it because it's a public ramp.
Well, but it's not fishing.
But it isn't for
It is a
recreation.
public record. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fireworks is recreation.
It is. It is.
All right.
All right, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and do that.
Sorry to take you away from your reports. Sir.
Thank you. Any other reports? Town administrating report.
Well, the first one was the fishing game boat launch. So I think we've already covered that unless, I take that back. The reason that I brought that up is a conversation that you and I had earlier on about the communications or lack thereof about the dedication ceremony, what they sent. So what's in front of you, and it was brought to my attention earlier before the meeting that there is at the very top, this was an old email that was attached with a new one. So the April, the one that says temporary winter closure, that was an old email that he attached to Garrett from Fish and Game when he sent me this new one. So the second one down on the page came in Thursday, April 21st, was to, well, you can read it there, and it says, in case you haven't heard, we've completed construction, and they announced that it's fully open Friday, April 22nd. I got the email April 21st at 2:59. So, and then also they mentioned that they will be closed one more time at dusk on May 2nd and reopen about 1 a.m. on May 3rd after the dedication ceremony. And that was the only mention or notice we got of the dedication ceremony. And of course, the conversation that we had to bring everybody else in is, Paul had mentioned that he was, concerned about the lack of communication and the fact that there was invitations sent out to other or not agencies, but other organizations within town for the dedication. And the one person that didn't get invited was the town of Alton or Selectmen, which I can definitely see how that's bad form. So the conversation, this was brought up for conversation along the lines of maybe when I have that same conversation with Garrett about what we can do about that, with the board's permission, I will speak to them about really the fact that was a little disrespectful to the town and its community.
Poor taste.
Yes, it was absolutely not to put that invitation out and yet to invite other organizations other than the town,
Especially the
government
last
that-
comment.
What's that?
Especially one of the last comments. Please pass this information along as you see fit.
Right.
Yes, sir. I have no problem with that. Okay.
All right, well, that was all I had for that. And the last thing I just wanted to show you was, this is a signed letter from Solid Waste on the trailer. When we had last left it, the board had decided to grant the trailer to the gentleman that, as long as town attorney had no issues, and we drafted up the letter. I just included this for your information. This is the letter that was drafted up to protect us from any liability. And in speaking to the town attorney, there is no RSA that prevents the town from disposing of town property in a manner they see fit. But it has to be obviously, and we don't want to violate our own policy, so it has to be in conjunction with our disposal policy from our personnel manual. And I did reference that as well. The town board of selectmen has the authority to dispose of town property in any manner they see fit based on the value or lack thereof. And it also even gives an example of salvaging, which is exactly really what the board had authorized the town superintendent to do, is salvage it. And in lieu of spending on the man hours and the time to rip that thing apart, this seemed to be a better option. And he did take it and remove it on his own expense. And that was just an FYI for you folks to follow up.
Thank you.
So that's all I had.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes, April 18th, 2022, public session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the April 18th, 2022 minutes as submitted.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of April 18th, 2022, non-public session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the April 18th, 2022 non-public session. Not divulging item 2, 4, 6.
Second,
6, you said?
Yes, sir.
2, 4, and 6.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the May 2nd, 2022 consent agenda as presented. Item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Do we have a second?
This I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any requests or appointments?
No, we do not.
Okay, in that case, I'll open up to public input, limit of 5 minutes for any government town business.
Warren Cap. I wonder if we would maybe entertain, like for vehicles, have like a 250-mile radius of the different vehicles on a list, so that when we have a bid, an email would be sent out to that group that we are asking for a bid for, like the pickups example, like we could afford the Dodge and the Chevrolet dealers, a 250-mile radius, and then we just hit a button and they can all get an email. I wonder if that would help. I don't want to call it a preferred list, but with the computers now, all you do is hit the button and it would send the email to all of them. I wonder if that would help. And even with the equipment and things like that. That's kind of shocking, 400 days to get a pickup. Wow.
Long time.
Yeah, that's the
And I wonder if it's,
the norm.
I wonder if the other one just said, well, I'm not going to bid because of that. And these people said, well, we'll put this stipulation. So,
It's
they did it
possible.
with that stipulation, and the rest of them said, well, I just can't meet it. So they may have, if they may have thought of it, they may have came up with the same idea, but.
Well, the other thing is the way we request the RFPs by bid, and we're asking it to be ordered. We don't have to order trucks. There are trucks out there.
Right.
That's the other problem.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see the advertisements on TVs right now are saying, order your cars, order your cars. They're trying to get us to order cars
Right.
now and equipment. And there are vehicles out there. They're not abundancy, but they are out there. You do have to look and search.
So I wonder, maybe like even 500-mile radius.
It's not a bad idea.
All you can do is
can be done.
contact the Ford company. I'm sure they'll give you all the dealers within a 500-mile radius. The Chevrolet and Dodge will probably do the
Good
same.
idea.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing anyone else, I'll close the public input.
There's
None.
no non-public.
Nothing,
Have
no
one, sir.
non-public.
You have one.
I move we adjourn,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I
Do
do
we have a
have one
second?
non-public.
Hmm?
I do have one non-public underneath. No, I can't. I'll have to speak to Mr. Heath about this. I'll withdraw that. I'll speak to Mr. Heath about it.
In that case, we have a motion on the table for adjourn.
Yes, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I think we just broke a record.